Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're diving into something that really set the internet on fire. Elon Musk at Trump's inauguration. We're talking about that gesture. You know the one. Luckily, we've got some excerpts from an article that lays it all out, from the initial reactions to the social media frenzy that followed.
It's really incredible how a simple gesture can become so loaded, sparking these wildly different interpretations. It really makes you think, doesn't it, about the power of symbolism and how tricky it can be to truly understand what someone meant.
All right, so let's break it down. The article sets the scene with Musk clearly excited about the American flag on Mars thing. I mean, he's pounding his chest, arm shooting straight up, and then he does it again towards the stage. And even CNN's Aaron Burnett picks up on it, calls it an odd-looking salute right on air. And well, that's when the internet decided to chime in.
Oh, yeah, and that's when you immediately see this divide in how people are viewing it. You've got critics jumping in, calling it a Nazi salute, some even tweeting these pretty harsh accusations. But on the other side, you've got supporters pushing back, throwing out the Roman salute defense, saying it was just a sign of respect.
Hold on, Roman salute, didn't that have kind of a complicated history? I mean,
Yeah.
beyond just ancient Rome, right?
Exactly. The Roman salute, well, it started in ancient Rome, unfortunately got picked up and used by fascist regimes much later. That historical baggage makes it a really, really tricky symbol to use no matter what you intend. The article even quotes a tweet that says, and I quote, "Our new co-president Elon Musk gives a Nazi salute on day one of Trump presidency."
Wow, yeah, that's intense. But okay, playing devil's advocate for a second, the article also mentions that there wasn't anything specifically fascist in Musk's actual speech, right? And he would probably deny any connection to that kind of symbolism, wouldn't he?
Right, and that's what makes this so fascinating. We're left with this ambiguity, no clear proof, just a gesture open to a whole bunch of different interpretations. It's like a Rorschach test almost. People see what they want to see in it.
So you're saying it all comes down to perception.
Yeah.
Like if you already went into it disliking Musk, you'd probably see a Nazi salute. And if you were a fan, you'd lean toward the Roman salute explanation.
Exactly. Psychologists call this confirmation bias. It's like this. We tend to seek out information and then interpret it in a way that just confirms our existing beliefs. It's powerful stuff, especially online where information spreads like wildfire. You get these echo chambers that just reinforce what people already think.
That makes sense. But then wouldn't that mean everyone in this whole situation is biased in some
Yeah.
way? How can we even try to untangle all of this and figure out what's actually objective?
That's a really good question. So how do we break free from those echo chambers? How do we get a more, I don't know, nuanced and critical understanding of things, especially events that are so emotionally charged? What can we do as, viewers to be more aware?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I think it starts with each of us recognizing our own biases. We all have them. It's just, human nature. But by being aware of those biases, we can start to question our own assumptions and maybe be more open to different perspectives.
Okay, so self-awareness is like step one. But how do we actually go about seeking out those different viewpoints, especially when, it seems like algorithms are practically designed to just feed us more of what we already agree with? It takes effort, that's for sure. But I really do believe it's worth it. One thing you can do is actively seek out sources of information that challenge your views. Read articles from publications with different leanings. Follow people on social media who have different opinions than you. The goal isn't necessarily to change your mind, but to expose yourself to a wider range of perspectives and, to try to understand where those other people are coming from.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like if you only ever listen to one radio station, you're only going to hear one kind of music. You're missing out on this whole world of sound.
Exactly. And just like music, exposing yourself to different viewpoints can broaden your horizons and help you appreciate how complex the world really is.
Okay, so we've got being self-aware and seeking out different perspectives. What else can we do to be more, I guess, critical consumers of information, especially when it comes to these kinds of, controversial events?
One key thing is to be cautious about jumping to conclusions based on limited information. We're living in this world of instant news and social media where things move so incredibly fast. It's easy to get caught up in the hype and form an opinion before we've really had a chance to process all the facts.
Right. It's like everyone wants to be the first to weigh in, to have the hottest take, even if they don't have the full picture yet.
Exactly. And that can lead to a lot of misinformation and misunderstanding. So before you hit that share button, before you fire off that tweet, take a moment to pause, breathe, and ask yourself, do I have all the information I need to actually form an informed opinion?
It's funny. The article actually pointed out that even journalists were hesitant to outright label Musk's gesture. Like, they would often just share the clip and let people decide for themselves. It's almost like everyone was walking on eggshells, afraid to say the wrong thing.
That's such a reflection of how sensitive these types of symbols are, especially those connected to these hateful ideologies like Nazism. It also highlights the power of social media to blow up controversies and create this atmosphere of fear, where people and organizations can face this huge backlash for anything that seems like a misstep.
Yeah, it's a real tightrope walk, isn't it?
Mm.
We want to condemn hate speech and symbols that promote bigotry, but we also don't want to stifle free expression or shut down open dialogue. Finding that balance can be so tricky.
It is tricky, but it's a conversation we need to have. And it requires empathy, understanding, and a willingness to listen to those who might have different experiences and different perspectives.
Okay, so going back to Elon for a minute, the article mentions he put out a video of his speech on X, but guess what? That first salute, missing. What do you make of that?
That's interesting, isn't it? It's possible he just picked a clip that, showcased the points he wanted to highlight. But you gotta admit, it is a little too convenient that the most controversial part is missing. Makes you wonder, if he was aware of the potential backlash and chose to avoid adding fuel to the fire.
Right. Like, come on. He's not naive. He must have known that gesture would raise eyebrows. It almost seems like he was trying to, I don't know, have his cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
Get the attention, but then try to backpedal when things got heated.
It's certainly possible, but it also reminds us that we don't always have access to people's true intentions. We're often left to interpret their actions based on limited information and our own subjective viewpoints, and that can be a recipe for misunderstanding.
Which brings us right back to that whole idea of confirmation bias, doesn't it? We fill in the blanks with whatever fits our existing narrative.
Exactly. We're all storytellers in a way, trying to make sense of the world around us. And sometimes we might be so attached to our own stories that we miss important details or even like alternative interpretations.
So how do we become better storytellers, more objective, more open to those different narratives?
I think it comes down to curiosity, being willing to ask questions, to challenge your own assumptions, to dig a little deeper beneath the surface. It's about recognizing that there's always more to the story than what we see at first glance.
And sometimes the most interesting part of the story lies in those hidden layers.
Right?
The stuff that doesn't make it into the initial headlines or the viral tweets.
Absolutely. It's in those nuances, those complexities, that we can really start to appreciate the richness and diversity of human experience.
The article actually draws a parallel between Musk's gesture and a similar one made by Fox News host Laura Ingraham at the 2016 Republican National Convention. She also faced accusations of giving a Nazi salute, which, she denied. It seems like there's a pattern here.
There is. And it raises this broader question about the historical baggage of certain symbols and whether they can ever be used in other contexts without evoking those negative associations. In Ingram's case, she said she was simply pointing to the crowd, which is a pretty common gesture at rallies.
But even if that was her intention, that visual similarity to a Nazi salute was enough to spark outrage. It seems like some symbols are just so deeply ingrained in our minds that they're almost impossible to separate from their, dark past. Like, you can't just slap a new label on them and expect everyone to forget where they came from.
That's a valid point, and it highlights the importance of being aware of the historical context and the potential impact of our actions, even if our intentions are pure. We need to be mindful of the messages we're sending, both intentionally and unintentionally.
So where does that leave us? We've got a gesture, a million interpretations, this whirlwind of online debate, and a whole lot of questions about intent, symbolism, and the power of perception. How do we even begin to untangle this knot?
I think the first step is acknowledging the complexity of the issue. There's no easy answer, no single interpretation that will satisfy everyone. But by engaging in thoughtful discussion, considering different viewpoints, and being willing to challenge our own assumptions, we can start to develop a more nuanced and informed understanding.
It's interesting. This whole conversation reminds me of that old saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, it seems like a gesture is worth 1,000,000 interpretations. It's a powerful reminder that even in our increasingly visual world, context, intent, and perception play a crucial role in shaping how we understand and react to things.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so important to engage in critical thinking, to question assumptions, and to be open to the possibility that there might be more to the story than meets the eye. Especially in an age of instant information and social media frenzy, it's crucial to step back, take a deep breath, and really examine the nuances before forming our opinions.
Well said. This has been a fascinating deep dive exploring the complexities of symbolism, perception, and the power of a single gesture to ignite a firestorm of controversy. But before we wrap things up, we have one final thought to leave you with. It's wild how much weight a simple gesture can carry, isn't it? We've been talking about this whole Elon Musk thing, and it really shows you how much our culture shapes how we see things, the biases we all have, and how hard it is to figure out what someone really meant, especially when everyone's got such strong opinions about it.
Yeah, it's true. You'd think a simple movement would be easy to understand, but it's become this huge controversy, hasn't it?
Totally. One thing that stood out to me in the article was how the ADL defines a Hitler salute. They specifically say it's an outstretched arm with the palm down, and usually there are chants that go along with it. Musk's gesture, even though it looks similar, didn't really have all those other elements.
That's really important, to look at the whole picture. It's those other actions, the context that help us figure out what's going on. Like, think about it. A simple wave could be a friendly hello, or it could be someone brushing you off. It all depends on what else is happening.
So are we saying intention matters? Like, even if a gesture looks bad, the person's thought behind it should be considered.
It's rarely that simple. Intention is definitely important, but it's not the whole story. We also need to think about the impact. Even if someone didn't mean to hurt anyone, their actions can still have a negative effect, especially when it comes to symbols with a painful history.
Okay, I see how tricky this gets. How do you balance someone's intentions with the possibility of causing harm, especially with symbols that have such a loaded past?
It takes a lot of thoughtfulness, empathy, and being willing to have those nuanced conversations. And it's important to remember that where something happens matters a lot too. The same gesture at a political rally might be seen completely differently than if it happened at a backyard barbecue.
It's almost like language, right? The meaning of words can change over time. Even words that seem harmless can become associated with negative things. It feels like symbols go through that same kind of evolution, too.
Absolutely. Symbols aren't static. Their meaning can shift based on culture, historical events, or social movements. What was once okay can become taboo, or vice versa. It's a constant evolution, and we need to be aware of those changes.
So are we just stuck being haunted by the ghosts of symbols past?
Yeah.
Or can we actually reclaim them and give them a new meaning and purpose? The article mentions a Musk supporter saying they wish community notes had clarified that Musk was extending his heart to the crowd, but that didn't seem to catch on.
That's a question that societies have been grappling with forever. Some symbols are so tied to hate and oppression that they might be beyond saving. Others might change and take on new meaning, but it takes a conscious effort and a willingness to embrace that change.
What we're really getting at here is the power of symbols and the responsibility that comes with using them, right? Whether it's a gesture, a word, or an image, symbols can trigger strong emotions and shape how we see the world. We need to be mindful of how we use them and the impact they have.
Exactly. This has been a journey, hasn't it? We've dug into symbolism, intent, and how hard it can be to navigate a world where history and perception are constantly bumping up against each other. We've uncovered different layers of meaning and wrestled with ambiguity, and hopefully this has got you thinking more critically about these kinds of things.
And that's what it's all about, right?
Yeah.
Challenging ourselves to think differently, broadening our perspectives, and having those tough conversations, even when the topic is as complicated as this one. So next time you come across a symbol that makes you think twice or sparks debate, remember to dig a little deeper, consider all sides of the story, and don't shy away from those tough questions. That's how we learn, grow, and make the world a more understanding place.
Until next time, keep those minds curious and those conversations flowing.